So you need to understand, why do you live for things like human rights? You seem like a compassionate guy, loving guy. Why? Why are you like that? And it's because you're swimming in the pond of Judeo-Christian values set by Jesus Christ.
Okay, so my general question is, what to you guys is the difference between indoctrination and education? Because I believe that the people that come to religion on their own are the people that most enjoy it and use it for the most good, and that forcing it on people can either hurt them or they will use it for bad purposes. And teaching it to children who cannot intellectually defend themselves and have no world experience is, I think, a big problem. And it is an interesting one. There's the example that Richard Dawkins uses of there's no such thing as a Marxist child or a capitalist child, right? They don't understand those things. And yeah, like one of my extreme views is that I don't think that anybody under the age of 18 should be allowed in any religious building.
Do you think kids are getting indoctrinated in public schools around here right now?
No.
They're just getting educated?
That's education, yes.
Really?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Have you talked to their parents?
No. I was wondering what your answer is.
I would talk to their parents. They're getting more indoctrinated now than ever in the area of you can only be transparent with guidance counselors at their school, and the guidance counselors have had the parents sign certain documents where they are not even going to share things with the parents when the kids are only 7 years old. I mean, talk about indoctrination. Holy smokes. The level of dogmatism couldn't be any higher in our public schools.
Right. I'm a big believer in that. I mean, we don't let parents physically abuse their children. We do draw lines of what parents, they're not just like, all right, that's your kid, you can do whatever. And I'm a big believer in that society is required to look after everybody. And if that child wants to, I do want to withhold some things from my parent, I think they have the right to do that. Yeah.
So based off of the latest Harvard and Dartmouth studies, if you are going to church on a weekly basis, you grow greatly in your happiness and fulfillment in your 20s and 30s. Your depression chances drop significantly. Anxiety drops significantly. Drug abuse drops significantly. You become a much greater giver to your community. So why wouldn't you, if you don't take your kids to church, then you're abusing them?
There's the counter argument of that is looking at all of the people that have had their lives really messed up from religion and had bad experiences, and the huge amounts of, just gay people or throughout history, the people that have been targeted and religion being weaponized against them.
Mao Zedong, over 110 million. Hitler, over 6 million. Pol Pot, 4 million.
Were they killing
we just keep
atheism?
One warden who said, in the name of the God that does not exist, thank you that you do not exist so that I can do to this prisoner whatever I want to do. So Stalin, absolutely. These were atheistic regimes that were set up. There were communistic regimes as well, where there was zero God involved. Zero. And that's why, morally, they could do whatever they wanted to anybody and slaughter them. Makes a lot of sense.
Kind of away from the topic. Could we get back to what's the difference?
No, it's not away from the topic at all, because you were saying dogmatism and the way all these kids are abused in the Christian church, and I just flipped it right on you, and you had a tough time answering it. Look at Rodney Stark. He's an atheist sociologist. He passed away recently. He himself did all these studies. So I'm getting this from an atheist, not a Christian. I'm not quoting Christian sources here. This is a serious thing. And so to say that Christians somehow are indoctrinating more so than atheists or are doing more damage to kids than atheists is just simply not true. That is your worldview backed by zero science or studies behind it. I took your point and basically took it to an extreme. What specifically, though, are you getting at? That you want? What does education look like? See, because I think the two are so close. Like him taking me to church on every Sunday, strongly encouraging me. Is that indoctrination or is that education?
I believe that that is indoctrination. For me, the difference between indoctrination is something that is forceful and has punishments attached to it, and is a biased form of education where you are. I mean, he wasn't taking you one day to a church and then to a mosque and then to a synagogue, right? It is presenting one side of the story and presenting it as this is the only truth, and if you don't follow it, there's punishments. Right. That does not go on in public schools.
No.
I was waiting.
He did not spank me and say, you better go to church with tears in your eyes and feeling like you're abused. No. See, our society today defines freedom exactly like you're defining it right now. No guardrails. And let's just pretend like you can do anything you want. That's called negative freedom. So, for example, if you go home, let's say 30 years from now, and you just start eating pints and pints of ice cream, and that's freedom, right? Eat whatever you want. Well, you're not going to see your grandkids or kids for very long because you're going to pass away. It's negative freedom. Positive freedom says there needs to be guardrails. There needs to be restraints in life. You cannot go against the fabric of the universe that God created, or you're going to end up completely demised fairly quickly. So to say that he indoctrinated me is quite comical, because very early in my life was he saying, all right, do you want to believe this or do you not want to believe this? You better ask these big questions. And especially when you hit high school, when you have the ability to really think for yourself, you better be looking at all the worldviews. And so never did he force me to go to church, never did he force me to go a certain way, and he always opened the door for, you better ask any type of question you want.
And on the morality side of things and the community side of things, there are ways that, I mean, yes, it absolutely gives you community, and there are, it is a form of morality, but...
Well, he made me go to school. That's indoctrination. He made me go to school every single day. That was abuse.
Well, not only that, 75% of preachers' kids do not believe in Jesus. What are you going to do with that? You still going to hide behind, oh, Christians are into indoctrination? 75% of ministers' kids do not follow Jesus Christ. Well, obviously, it knocks your whole theory right into the garbage can.
I was asking you what the difference between indoctrination...
No, you went further than that. That's where you started. But then you went further and said, and Christians indoctrinate people and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
and that's what came out.
They weren't successful in the indoctrination doesn't mean that it's not indoctrination.
Oh. If 75% of preachers' kids, ministers' kids don't believe in Christ anymore, mom and dad did a horrible indoctrination. Because when you start talking to preachers' kids, inevitably the reason they walked away from Christ is dad and mom were too busy with the people of their church, didn't give them much time, which is what I had to fight to make sure I was a coach, went to his games, supported him, loved him across the board. He needed to understand he's going to play what sport he wants to play. He's going to go to church, but he can believe whatever he wants to believe. I'm not going to force him to believe something. But yes, I'm going to teach him. And if you have a doctor who's aware of the fact that you are a woman who's never had a mammogram, if the doctor doesn't tell you, you need to go and get a mammogram, ma'am, because breast cancer is lethal, he doesn't give a rip about that woman. So be careful the way you slip into indoctrination. Are there some examples of indoctrination in the Christian church? Absolutely yes. But sir, today, Christians indoctrinating, meaning by that forcing their kids to do something? Absolutely no way. I have never bumped into that. And I'm on the lookout for it, believe me. And that's baloney. To brainwash somebody? I assume that what you mean when you say indoctrination with such a negative connotation is you're accusing them of brainwashing. No. I have never met any Christian parents who brainwash their kids.
And it's a fallacy, too. It's totally inconsistent. One of my best friends in college, who's a strong, strong Christian, said that his atheist parents said, absolutely no, you are not going anywhere Sunday morning. You are staying at home. Is that indoctrinating? He wasn't allowed to explore different worldviews like Christianity.
Yes.
Okay, good. So atheists indoctrinate just as much as Christians.
No.
Yeah, okay, that's a bald assertion. Bald assertion. What is the evidence? Absolutely no. It's not an argument. It's not an argument. What? That's an emotional bias. What is the evidence then?
No, you said that like the amount of Christians and atheists that indoctrinate, but there's like what 10 times more Christians in America, and I would love to see the
Percentage within the control group, absolute 110%. Atheists do not take their kids to church. That's a form of indoctrination as well. Just because somebody takes their kids to church and says, hey, we're going to church today, just like you're going to go to school during the week. A lot of parents just take their kids to church just so they can have a moral foundation of ethics. Just like school, you're going to learn in order to actually have a healthy career and make money. Very similar, they say. And then you got the atheists here on a Sunday morning saying, no, we're not going to do that. That's not being more of a free thinker, my friend. You can be a free thinker in each circle. Atheists are not just the free thinking ones. I'm sorry. The majority of atheists, unfortunately, are very closed off in their thinking. They claim to be free thinkers, and I'm very open to the evidence, but the vast majority of them that we meet, and you've been doing it for 47 years, they are very closed off. And that's why I like the kid before you who was an atheist, and he was quite open, very open to different worldviews, and said, I don't know at the end of the day. And so I would urge you to have the same type of perspective. Just because there's some abuse in the church, just because there's some abuse in atheistic regimes, does not mean it's untrue. Just because Beethoven was such a fantastic musician, and I play Beethoven very poorly, I am not musically gifted, does not mean that that's a reflection on Beethoven himself. Beethoven is still a great musician.
I'd like to end with religions being different TVs, right? And there are different channels on TV, and that atheism, which you were claiming it's also like restricting somebody and putting them down a tunnel, is the equivalent of turning that TV off and letting them, explore to go to one of those things, or to fill that zone with other types of philosophy or ways of thinking, and appreciating their world and understanding their world. Yeah.
But there is an unfortunate historical fact. Jesus lived a sinless life, died on a cross for forgiving his enemies, and rose from the dead. And Jesus Christ has led the charge for respecting women, respecting people of all races, because we're all created in the image of God. He has led that charge. There's nobody who's impacted this world when it comes to racial equality, gender equality, more than Jesus Christ. But let's talk about an historical fact. You put Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin, and Adolf Hitler together, and their worldview, their philosophy of life, was perfectly justified in what they did, slaughtering millions of people. When Christians murder people, that is hypocrisy. That is wrong. It's a violation of what Jesus taught. When an atheist slaughters people, that is not a violation of their moral relativism. That is not a violation of their nihilism. And don't take it from me. Read Friedrich Nietzsche, Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre. It's real clear, intellectually consistent. No God, morality is relative. You can love people, you can murder them. It's all relative. You follow Jesus Christ and you're a hypocrite, you murder, you hate people, you're racist, you're a flamin' phony. Flat out. That's all I'm saying.
No, I would agree with that.
So if morality is not objective, you have wiped out the basis of critiquing Stalin, Hitler, because it's all relative. So you take your little cultural prejudices and get out. Mao Zedong was Chinese. Different culture. You have no business telling him from your culture, Mao Zedong, that was wrong what you did. You're a different culture from Adolf Hitler. You have no basis for telling a Nazi German slaughtering Jews in Dachau and Auschwitz is wrong.
Morality is not objective, but it can be reasoned and logically came to through philosophy, like John Rawls' theory of justice.
You bet.
And there are people that yes, I can critique those people.
The only problem is Stalin had his reasons, Hitler had his reasons. And I'm an arrogant twit if I say my reasoning is right and your reasoning is wrong. What you have is you hold on to truth. And you say, with my mind, I'm getting in touch with truth, Hitler. I'm getting in touch with truth, Mao Zedong. If you're a consistent atheist, you know truth does not exist. Truth is just something you perceive with your own bias, with your own cultural prejudice. Come on, man, what's ethnocentrism? Certainly you guys are being taught about the evils of ethnocentrism here at the University of Oregon. It's thinking that your culture is right and other cultures are wrong. Where on earth do you get off critiquing other cultures? It's all relative, man. And if one culture wants to say slaughtering Jews is good, that's their culture. And if Mao Zedong, with his culture, wants to say slaughtering people is good, for him it's good. But if I'm a follower of Christ and I say slaughtering Jews is good, I'm a hypocrite because I'm contradicting Jesus Christ. I'm contradicting the good character of God. And that's why I respect Nietzsche, Camus, and Sartre, because they had the honesty to take their atheism seriously, and they said, it's all a cosmic crapshoot. You define it your way, I define it my way. I'm not right, you're not wrong. You're not right, I'm not wrong. It's all relative, man. You can't live that out, and I'm glad you don't, sir. You know very well that you as an atheist have a conscience that tells you, no, 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 no. Although I might say with the top of my head, morality is relative, don't you go around slaughtering Jews, Hitler, because that's really objectively wrong. But you're an intellectual hypocrite. You're living your life as if, oh no, baby, you gas Jews, that ain't relatively wrong, that is absolutely wrong.
Are there rules to, like, objective rules created by somebody else? No, but humans, it is objectively wrong if I wanted people to not kill me to go kill people, right? That's the golden rule. The golden rule is a great example of logic being able to work its way and for something to be objective.
Oh,
right?
I disagree totally. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Makes some sense. You stick the knife in my back, I scratch your back and help you? That's stupid. That's what Jesus taught. Jesus taught not just you scratch my back and then, baby, tit for tat, I'll scratch your back. You help me and then I got a reason to help you. Jesus said, the guy who sticks the knife in your back, you go out and help him. You love your enemy. That, sir, is stupid. It is illogical if we live in a dog-eat-dog world. But if there is a God who is love at the center of the cosmos, then it's stupid not to love your enemy. Because your enemy is still a human being created in the image of God. And that's what my lesbian friends at Texas State couldn't understand. When they said to me, Cliff, you said you got racist friends? You're an idiot. You have friends who are racist? And I said, yes, ma'am. But they're still human beings created in the image of God. And they still have value. I deplore their racism, but I love them and respect them as human beings created in the image of God.
Violence is a cycle, and if we keep on breaking it and breaking it and breaking it, at some point we have to find within ourselves to say, continuing this cycle of violence only leads to more violence, and we need to stop it, right? I mean, you look at the historical things of Ireland and like any world conflict, right? To some extent, you have to say, all right, we're going to be the bigger person and not do this in order to end the cycle of violence for all human good.
No, buddy, I appreciate your altruism.
Right. And
we're going to be bigger people.
If somebody stabs me and I stab him back, then I get stabbed back again, right? Like,
I could give a rip about the cycle.
so
I care about my family.
You
stick him or you stick me, I'm coming after you, bud, to teach you you don't do that ever again. If you do, I'm going to knife you.
A contradiction to what you just said Jesus wants you to do.
Thank you. I'm jumping into your worldview. And if your worldview is morality is relative, I am not going to love my enemy. I'm not going to love the guy who sticks him with a knife. If morality is relative and it's all a crapshoot, you stick him with a knife, I'm coming after you, bud.
Okay.
Because you better not stick him again.
Why? I don't believe that, but okay.
And you have no basis for it. I asked you why, and you have no basis.
Well, no, you should be.
And don't take it from me. Take it from Nietzsche, Camus, Sartre. Don't take it from me.
Okay.
Take it from all the nihilists. It's exactly what they pointed out. Camus begins the book, L'étranger, the stranger, with the words of a young teenage boy who says, yesterday mother died. Or was it today? Who gives a rip when mom died? Life is absurd. Death ends the absurdity that birth began. That's consistent atheism. That's Albert Camus. He was brilliant. But you can't live it out.
And just to let you know, from that evolutionary morality perspective, you should be a fascist. You should be a fascist because from the evolutionary perspective, strong eat the weak. Eventually you start to group up in a clan, and in order to survive, you stick with your clan. You just said something where everybody notices violence, and so cross-culturally, everybody should get together and say, hey, we got to figure out how to heal this violence. There's not a shred of evidence for that from moral theory. From an evolutionary perspective, it's the strong eat the weak, so you should always try and preserve your gene pool and just yours alone with your group. So I'm just trying to completely debunk everything you said about moral theory right there. Because morality that we get from God is not just this guy in the sky who's somehow writing all the rules. No, it's a moral transcendent source. There's a law above the law. That's why we can seek after peace and reconciliation and fight against racism. Because it's not about the law that comes just from culture.
Just
there's
read
a law
the
above
letter
the law.
from the Birmingham jail. The white ministers of Birmingham, Alabama were telling, shut up, black boy. Shut up, Dr. Martin Luther King. The great state of Alabama has decreed that segregation is good. And from his prison cell, Dr. Martin Luther King writes, guess what, guys? There's a law above the law of the great state of Alabama, and according to that law, segregation and racism are wrong. Bravo, Dr. Martin Luther King. That is exactly right. Intellectually consistent. There's a law above the law of the great state of Alabama. No king. If there's no God, there's no law above the law of the state you live in. But King said, garbage. King said, you've got a conscience and you understand that there is a law above the law of the state of Alabama. And according to that law, segregation is evil.
From your perspective, that makes sense.
No.
That's
From
just
your
not
perspective,
what
does that make sense or not?
I mean, I think that there are, I mean, as Martin Luther King said, that there's a moral imperative to not follow unjust laws, right? And I do not believe, though, that God is the only way to find a theory of justice. Like I just said, John Rawls and plenty of others, political and social theorists have come up with ways with the absence of God.
All right, but what are they? You talked about how Christians are closed-off thinkers and that atheists are wide open in their thinking and their truth-seeking. You keep dropping John Rawls. Now I want to hear, what is his perspective and how do we get to this place of justice without God?
His view is that he talks a lot about the veiled ignorance of you not knowing where you will be in a certain situation, right? Like if I'm gonna break a cookie in two, right? We're gonna split a cookie and I break it in two, and I break it, but you choose a piece, right? It would be foolish of me to break one piece big and one piece small, right? Those are the types of logical things that you can just come to without God.
Okay.
That can then build a society of what we want.
Yep. No, I know. Yeah, I know.
If, right, the society in Martin Luther King today was like, all right, there's going to be one group that has all access to everything, and there's going to be one group that has no access to anything, right? The whites and the blacks, right? That would not, that does not make sense logically.
You get there with reason. You get there with reason. Okay. I want you to read the Shuntong Compound. A secularist from Harvard was in the Shuntong Compound, and he said, in this prisoner of war camp, we are going to be reasoned based off of Rawls. We are going to be able to reason ourselves to the point of saying, hey, your bunk over here only has 2 beds. We over here have 3, and there's more prisoners coming in. So why don't we share our portions, our rations with you, maybe even give you a bed, because we're rational human beings, where we're just going to say morally and ethically, we should be equal. Okay, this Harvard atheist, I love that he writes, another book would be Tim Keller's Making Sense of God. He writes in there, and he talks about how I thought by Rawls' perspective, we could be reasonable human beings and say, hey, break off half that cookie for you, and I'll keep half. Doesn't that make sense? But he says as soon as the pressure picks up, it's impossible to live out that moral theory. Impossible. But Jesus Christ steps in and he says, no, morally, we are all created in God's image. We are all equal. Jesus Christ says, stick your neck out on the line for the other. Don't save your own skin. Love the other. That's why there was a man in that camp named Eric Liddell, who was an Olympian, who lived out the Christian moral ethic because he was devoted to Christ. And he was the only one in that camp, this secularist talks about, who has joy, happiness, and peace. And he was the only one sacrificing for others, not because of reason, sharing half a cookie with another half a cookie. You and I get both half cookies. No, he said that would not work. And sure enough, it didn't work. It never does. So you need to understand, why do you live for things like human rights? You seem like a compassionate guy, loving guy. Why? Why are you like that? And it's because you're swimming in the pond of Judeo-Christian values set by Jesus Christ.
But Christianity does this all the times of like, yes, there are good things that you draw from it, and I agree with all the things you just said, but then you say this is the only way that we can come to these things, and it's like
No, that's not what we said.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You've totally misunderstood the past half hour. Never once did he say, never once did I say, if you're an atheist, you can't understand justice. What I am saying is, all of my, please listen, all of my atheist friends understand justice. All of my atheist friends are very good people. They do a lot of good. But the problem is, they have wiped out the foundation of goodness, the foundation of justice. Because when you wipe out God, you're wiping out the mind prior to the human mind, who creates and defines justice, who creates people with innate value, which means you're just floating through the air on this stuff. As Stuart said, you're living off the fumes of the Judeo-Christian worldview, because your worldview says there is no God. Now, if there is no God, why is justice not a real value? Because this thing and that column have no understanding of justice, right and wrong. It takes a mind, a thinking mind, to understand justice, love, forgiveness. If there is no God, there is no mind prior to the human mind, which means it's obviously the human mind that creates justice, love, whatever. But if you're going to be consistent and there is no God, you're going to have to say, so good and evil and injustice are just the creation of the human mind. So that mind has one definition, that one mind has another definition, that mind has another definition. This guy says, I'm more rational than you are, so my definition is correct. You say, I'm a more heartfelt, loving guy, so my definition is correct. And he says, I'm more into punish the wicked, and my definition is correct. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, because it's just the creation of the human mind. So if he's got his definition, who am I to tell him he's wrong? I'm just another human being. And what's really sick is if I say, oh no, my culture's right and your culture's wrong. Baloney. That's arrogance. So you see why Jesus Christ makes so much sense, because he is the foundation, God is the foundation of justice, goodness, love, compassion. These are real values. They're not made up by the Republicans. They're not made up by the Democrats. They're not made up by the Americans. They're not made up by the Nazis. They're made up by God, and he's given us consciences and rational minds that we can understand. And every one of my atheist friends, I'm going to say it so you don't misquote me, please, every one of my atheist friends does a lot of good. Every one of my atheist friends is very loving. But what they have wiped out is the foundation of that love, of that justice, which is God. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. Like and hit that subscribe button in order to join the family. Also want to invite you to our church where we pastor at in New Canaan, Connecticut. It's called Grace Community Church. We are currently meeting at a middle school, Saxe Middle School, and we start at 9:30 a.m. Hope to meet you there. See you soon.